Welcome to the Big Dam. This your boy Bobby Hill. Appreciate y'all for joining me today. As I always started, give a shout out to my lovely wife, Sandra Hill. She's at work doing her thing. But she's my backbone. She's always, she's my support system. When you doing this, I always do. Give her love. It's always gonna be the same. With that being said, I've been thinking about what I'm gonna things I'm gonna say today. I always say I'm gonna do a top five list. So I've been thinking about it, and I've been taking notes and looking, and just I don't have a lot from back in high school. I got back in during that time, I got like I have a program from one of the state championships that I went to. It was, I want to say, 2006. I think they lost that one. But then there was one for back to back, my hometown, Clinton High, and um, I got a program from there, and I got a couple newspaper clippings and stuff. So I don't have a lot. So a lot of things I have to go on. I go from memory and things that I've seen, witnessed with my own eyes, and things I remember reading about, and stuff like that. So, um, and then when I think like, because some of the top five I'm gonna do is stuff like personal. Some of the stuff is personal, like from my hometown. So people who are not familiar with know where I'm from. So I hope I don't lose you. But this is, some of that's a little personal, and then I'm gonna do some things, normal stuff. I ain't, excuse me, hopefully this won't be the only one I do, so I'm not going to go all crazy and have elaborate stuff. So just, but this first one is personal. So I want to, you know, because there's been a lot of talk about it, because that's how we do as fellas, growing up, there's sometimes that's how we, fellowship sometimes, sit back over drinks, over smoke, whatever you do, you know, sitting back, either you might be playing video game or just watching TV or something, watching a game. And anything can spark debate, who your top this, who your top five, this person better than that, this person better than that. All of us as young men done did it some form in their lives. You know, some point in their life and sat there and argue about something. Who the best this and who the best that. It don't matter. Best movie, best team, best player, best position, best this, best that. We went through a lot and everything. So, you know, that being said, this first one, I'm gonna get straight to the top one. I wanted to talk about. I had brought it up. I had asked. I actually had did a Facebook post on it years ago when I said this certain individual, because the school we went to, I went to grew up Southeast North Carolina. You already know Clinton High School, and we played the brand of football. We played that uh, like that Army Navy brand of football. That three running backs, you know, two tight ends. Sometimes the wing right off the tight end and the straight. We run the ball 90 something percent of the time. So as you will imagine, it's a lot of, and all the teams in the surrounding area play the same type of football, most of it in the immediate area, in the small area. Like, there were some teams like that was 30, like in the closest like populated area was Fayetteville, and when growing up, it was looked at as a city, but it's not a city. Being older and stuff, that's just a big town. But they had teams that had more, you know, up to date offensive systems. So a lot of teams around, we didn't play them. So the teams, that played, or the teams that ran the system, sort of like what we ran, running the ball a lot. So we had a lot of running backs. And I said this certain person was the number one, and it sparked debate. So yeah, first of all, I want to start when I say that I'm doing the top five running back. Clinton High. Yeah, about to do that. You know, and I'm only when I do this, I don't have knowledge of a lot of people like before me, like before when I was growing up. I heard of them and stuff. There was a few, but I didn't. I know there were people before me and stuff, and I don't want to. It's hard for me to gauge that. So when I talk about that, I talk about from when I played. We won our first state championship in 1990. So from that, like from around that era on, So, but with that being said, I like to give homage to a few a few legends that came up, and they definitely paved the way for the people who are being on this list. First I like to give a homage, give a shout out to Ray Bolton. If anybody in Clinton that's around my age or older, for the young people, if you ask them about Ray Bolton, they'll let you know that man was there. Ray Bolton. That's all I gotta say. Another one back there around his time was Lenny Face. Ray Bolton, Lenny Face. I mean, two men, they were great running backs. I didn't get a chance to see them a lot, but I just heard their name. I read about them in the paper and stuff. So, yes, and, they still talked about, I can still bring it up now. People will still talk about them, you know. And another one is, he's an attorney. He's a former judge, district judge. I think district, yeah. Albert Kirby. He was, a great running back. Went to, going to Wake Forest, and I think he got drafted by the Giants, but just like all of us athletes, some point in time, so injury and some derailed it, but he was able to get him a law degree, became a successful lawyer, became a judge. And I know there's more, but those are the three that came to my mind right now that I wanted to give homage to before I do this. And so, in the beginning of this, I would like to, if I did my top five, I like to do the honorable mentions, the outside looking in, people who are outside the top five. Don't mean they were not great. I mean, they still in my top 10, but they just weren't in the top five. So I like to give, first one, let's go run down the names. Raheem Skinner, he led his team, had the great running back, led his team to his championship game, fell short, put up big numbers. Little man did his thing. You got Derek Spencer, he's a big boy with very good feet, very agile. Was able to, was part of state championships, have lead this team. I think I was looking. In fact, I was looking at the book right here, and it was showing the records for the top performance in the state championship. And I think Derek, but this was in 2006. So I don't know what it is now, I don't know what it is now, but back then he still had one of the top performances, 180 yards in the state championship game, one of the top performances in, Clinton High School, state championship. So you got him. Let's see what else you got. And let's see. Yeah, I remember this one. I remember this guy. He was pretty good. He ran with. I remember he was running with one of the other guys that's on this list, Ricky Warren. I think he had 1,000 yards. I remember him. He was he was a nice running back. I like the way he moved. He was, had good speed and everything. And he next to. I hope y'all, they don't get offended. But I don't care. But that's they were good. They were great when they did it. But there's people who came after them. First one, I say Robert Lee. He was good. He had senior year. 1,400 yards. Six punt returns was a state record. Him, Jackson Fell. He had 1,500 yards. They won two punts. Led Clinton to under 50 season state championship in 1990. They did their thing. They were great. They were, a very talented team, and they were great. But now, here's the top five. My top five. I said I can't talk to anybody. It's my top five. Number five is rest in peace to him. Rest in peace to him. It was just, a life cut short. Wish he would have, things could have been differently. We could have got to see the best of him. But, at Clinton High School, I seen him, do his thing. That's Herbert Dixon, two shot. He was he's just a phenomenal football player. And all I have to go off of here, if I just have to say one thing about him, I was there. I seen the state championship game, and somebody posted about it. I forgot the Facebook page. Give him a shout out. What's his name? The name of the page. We had Buck Sweet Sports. Yeah, give him a shout out, man. He posted a video about two shot where he scored 4 touchdowns, against Burlington Cummings, and he scored 2 touchdowns within 30 seconds to win the game for Clinton, man. One on offense and one on defense, and he put the team on his back and did it. That was a phenomenal performance. So I got him at number 5. I think he had like 1,400, something like that season. He was a great linebacker and everything. Two-way player. He was great on both sides of the ball. It goes into our number 4, which is Leonard Henry, aka my childhood my childhood friend. We called him Skinner. Everybody know him as Skinner. Leonard Henry. He was a 4-year starter on varsity. He was a 4-year starter on varsity, and he was a part of some great teams. And he was the leader of a great team as a freshman, sophomore, and all years he was a great leader on the team. He started coming in his own as a running back his junior year. I think whenever I forgot the name of the team, but he had scored 6 touchdowns in a playoff game. And the thing that year, that team had a 3-pronged running back attack, and I think it was Leonard, and it was Robert Shackelford, and it was Dwayne Williams, and who is actually the little brother of the previously mentioned Jarris McPhail. And I think all 3 of them had 1,000 yards. And I think he led them with like 1,200 or something like that. But he had a playoff game where he had 6 touchdowns, and that's sort of like, that put him on the map. I mean, he was already a great player, but that put him on the map in his senior year. I think he had like 1,900 yards, and he took the team, just put it on his back, with the help of a few other players, and they just, went to a state championship. And he just, I always say the greatest compliment about him is that he was an all-state linebacker. When he ran for 1,900 yards. So that lets you know about that. So number 3, we have Nick Cooper. Nick Cooper had that's we say a workhorse. That's the definition of it. That man ran he had 2 2,000-yard seasons in Clinton. That's the only player that ever done that. He had 2 2,000-yard seasons, and I seen him his junior year. They went to the state championship. I think his 2-year, junior and senior year. They lost his senior year. That's the program I have. And they went to his junior year. And I went to the Eastern Regional Championship game too when he played. And that man, he was just a man amongst boys out there, man. He was a grown man out there, and the coach just fed him the ball, gave him the ball, and he wore him out, and just he with his legs, he carried them boys, and that was very, he can't say enough about that, man. That man did his thing on the field. That man had 2 2,000-yard seasons. He can't. That speaks for itself. And which goes into the number 2 one. Fast Willie Parker. I saw a lot of Willie Parker in high school. Like I said, I knew him from when I went to school with his brothers. Actually with his besides his oldest brother, J. Wayne Crumpler. He was 2 years below me. He sort of came out of nowhere, shot up to 6'7", and he played on the basketball team, and he was athletic, he had skills, He had his little brother. He had a little brother he was like a few, like 3 years, three some years behind me, 4 years behind me or something. When I was in ninth grade, he was in the eighth grade. He came in high school after I graduated. And his name Jamal Crumpler. He was very good in basketball. He could shoot, had handles, long, he was lanky, had jumping ability. He was a good athlete too. But we used to play basketball when we was younger out here in the streets, stuff on the blacktop. Really, we used to come up in his little bicycle with his little dog and stuff, and we called him Junior. He sat there and watch us play. He didn't play with us. He was young. He was real young. I was out here playing. He probably was in elementary school, but little Junior. Doing growing, and like I said, I left and graduated and stuff, and he grew up and came on his own, and he took the reins. I remember seeing him. I think I seen him 3 years. He was on a team with you know what I previously mentioned with Leonard Henry that won the state championship his senior year. I think he was a sophomore on that team. I think, and then the year after that, he took the reins on his own, and that boy did big things that year. Him and quarterback Brian Peterson and said Willie Parker did big thing. He was the way he did in the Super Bowl, that run he did in the Super Bowl, he did them like clockwork doing for Clinton. That was usual. He had a long run in the state championship at Keenan Stadium. He was a great player. I remember one year, I think the year they won the state championship, I think they lost. And I remember at the time when it happened, I was sort of like not I'm pissed, but because there was an argument like who the best team. Everybody was like, who the best team, who the best team. But I think they had lost to East Dublin at homecoming that year in Clinton. Lost by a field goal, something like that. And everybody like, oh, how you gonna lose? They gave them a hard time, not too much, but they got back on and kept on winning. But he's doing pretty good that year. So they met him again in the playoffs and at East Dublin. And, Clinton got him 33 nothing. Willie Parker, did his thing. And then next week when Chapel Hill did his thing, just you can't say enough about him, man. And everybody know what else. He went to Carolina. It wasn't and because of personality differences and creative differences and system differences and stuff like that, he wasn't able to shine. He had glimpses of don't get me wrong, he had glimpses of greatness up there, and but he never like was able to have the career that he should have had, because people felt like, you know, he should have been a different type of running back than he knew in his heart that he was. So that happened. But no, you can't hold down greatness, man. You can't hold down greatness. And, people have seen his greatness in high school and people remember his greatness in high school and that, translated him getting a shot at the NFL and the rest is history. So yeah, I got him at number two. For him being at number two, that lets you know the one at number one is, he can't say enough about. He didn't win a state championship, nah. He didn't rush for the most yards in the season, nah. But when I say this thing, he's the most gifted, and I can't say nobody, but he's the best running back I've seen, like in Clay High School. That's Juan Williams. I can't. If anybody can give me a reason not to put him in number one, I want to hear it. I watched that man. After I graduated, the team next year, that Juan hadn't played in a few years, so the coach put him on. I guess this is what information I've been told from people on the team. The coach, they started him. He started off top. I believe just started, and then when that team went undefeated regular season, Juan Williams I seen him play. That boy he's gifted, man. He's just totally naturally gifted, And then with that year, I won't get in it about the coach, but differences with the coach led to him being kicked off the team in the playoffs, and they lost. No, I'm not saying that he would have he could have single handedly beat them, but he would have had they would have had a whole lot better chance if he went on the team. So then he came back his senior year and he just had one of the greatest. He had like 1,600 yards in like 9 games. He was hurt. He was hurt, a couple games. So the reason why I got him at number one, he had a stretch. His last 3 games, I was there. I watched him play. His last 3 games, he had. Um, it was two. It was a last regular season game, and it was 2 playoff games. And all them games, that man had over three. That man had 200, over 250 yards in every single game, and he single-handedly beat them all 3 games. He was, I mean, that was he. I remember we talked to him. We used to talk. I was friends with him. I used to talk to him. We used to be like, man, how you be able to do it? And he used to tell us, man, he just seemed like, he said the field seemed like it's slow, man. He seemed like it's slow. Everything is moving slow, and I'm just at a different speed. And that's how he ran. That's how he ran. And like I said, I want to, if anybody could tell me, like, anybody can tell me, like, give me a reason why he shouldn't be number one, I would be willing to hear it. I'll be willing to hear it. I'll be willing to, debate it or whatever. I mean, let me know. I mean, but until then, that's Ron Williams, and said people who get in the feelings, I do not care, but those are the ones. Like I said, it's things I've seen. This ain't stuff. I'm not going from secondhand information. This is stuff that I've seen with my own eyes and things like that. And then going back. So another thing, I was like, we had a few teams to win the state championship. So, I like try to get like a top, the top teams. So there's been a debate for that. The top teams in CHS history to win the state championship. Like, do the state championship teams because you could pull up any year, any team that was great that fell short, but we doing the championship team to narrow it down. So, the best teams and the most talented teams. I don't know if I could do that hand in hand. That'd be different because the number 5, all right, the number 5 team, I say the 2005 championship with Nick Cooper. That was a great team. Matter of fact, Nick was the man that Nick carried them up there, but they won a championship. Man, I remember the state championship. Nick scored a touchdown, but after that, it was it. And they won the game by the quarterback. I think his name was Jarrell Henry. I think they intercepted and had a pick 6. They won it for him. So that was a good team. So yes, and excuse me. I don't think they didn't have an undefeated record. I think they may have lost 3 games. I think they went like 12-3 or something that year. So yeah, they had to overcome adversity, had some L's, and they pulled it together and got it done. That's a sign of a great team. So number 4, I would say the 2001 team with Herbert Dixon. They had the quarterback Jamar Hicks. I'm trying to think of the other people, man, but they had a few other. They had a few other people. They had a wide receiver. I forgot his name. He was decent because I remember the year after he had a kickoff return touchdown in the state championship. I forgot his name, but yeah, he was pretty good too. Matter of fact, I think that he had a passing. They ran like a flea flicker, and he had a passing touchdown to Jamar Hicks in that game too. The game I mentioned with Herbert Dixon. That team was great, man. That team, I think, undefeated. Also, undefeated or something, and they come in. Played a great Burlington Cummings team. It was a great game. Like I said, it came down to Herbert Dixon making 2 plays, offensive and a defensive play at the end of the game to seal the victory, man. I'm saying that team was great, and you didn't appreciate that until the year after because they went undefeated on until the state championship until they lost to the Burlington Cummings team the following year. But that team had won when Herbert Dixon left. That team still was undefeated, so they had a great team. So yeah, I said I put them at number 4. At number 3, I put the 1996 team with with Leonard Henry. You had Harry Blue. I mean, he had speaking of another one, had a pick six in the state championship game. Harry Blue, great all around player, offense, defense. I said you had Leonard Henry was doing his thing on off. He was a 4-year starter. He was an all-state linebacker who actually rushed for 1,900 yards. You had Brian Peterson at quarterback. He was a sophomore. Actually, at the beginning of the year, I think they had lost a couple games, and they really was struggling a little bit because they didn't really have a quarterback. So Brian, excelled, and they pulled him off of JB, and he come in, and the rest is history. He was the glue that they needed, and they had a young Willie Parker on their team. So they, they did their thing. It was a great team. They were able to go to the state championship and, you know, avenge. I think they had went to the state championship the year before and lost to Thomasville 16-0. So they were able to avenge. I think they had a motto that year called unfinished business. So though they were able to fulfill their prophecy. They were able to succeed, and those, like I said, it was a great team. It was a great team. They were just, almost like destined. So shout out to that. Well, these next two is a little controversial, a little bit. You know, you think I would say this because I was on that team, but not. Number two, it's going to be no. It's over years of reflection and just general knowledge and stuff. You sort of like get, you get a clear look and take the bias out because you were part of it and stuff, and you can sit back and look at it. And that's what I do. I mean, I'll just be honest with you, man, because I think number two would be that I would say personally, me. People say differently. People are mad. I don't give a damn. But personally, number two would be the 1990. But I will say this: 1990 is the most talented team of all time. They weren't the best team on the field, but they were the most talented team. That was the most talented team. But yeah, they had Jarris McPhail, all Fuzzy Lee, Robert Fuzzy Lee. There's Thomas Lockamy. They had Scooter Banks. They had a lot. They had a lot of great people on both sides of the ball. They said 15-0. They averaged 40 points a game when they gave up 6. They were able to avenge a loss from an opponent the year earlier who knocked them out, Farmville Central. And they were able to get to the state championship. And that's the knock. If they want to, if people, when you get all these teams were great, but when you get to, parsing like the greatness of teams, you be like, it's all, let's say when you say splitting hairs, that's what it is. So you want to put a knock. One thing, the knock you didn't have that 90 team at number one was the performance at the state championship game. I mean, we were, and I'm saying we was an offensive juggernaut, and we averaged, plenty yards. I think we averaged over 300 total yards a game at least a game. And like I said, we averaged 40 points. We only gave up 6 points a game. We scored from all facets, all levels and stuff, and we allowed ourselves to be stymied by a team because we weren't able to tap all of the talent that was on that team. We had the talent to be the one. We had talent. Actually, Clinton had that year. They had the talent to be nationally ranked. That's how talented it was, bro. We didn't run the type of football that could showcase us like the way we should have been showcased. So, like I said, we still had. Like I said, with all that, you still went 15-0. Still went 15-0 and still won a state championship despite that. So that lets you know how great it was. And with the number one team, I will put is the 97 team. The team with the back-to-back team, the second of the back-to-back team with Brian Peterson At quarterback, you had Willie Parker at running back, and you had a host of great players under them. That team was solid from one to all. That team was solid. I watched them all year, and they went to the state championship. And Willie Parker put on the show, and they performed, and it was greatness. And you know, I mean, that was just because they had a team that was returning. That team was that were loaded. They were coming off a team that won a state championship. Finally, won a state championship after going through all them years of disappointment and almost and almost and almost saying if this wouldn't happen or that wouldn't happen, we wouldn't have won. They finally got over that. So they went into next year. Like I said, that team that won in 96, they lost Leonard. I think they lost Harry Blue. They lost a few other players, but they had a whole lot of players coming back. And that team had already had the confidence to win the state championship. So they went into 97 with that swag. And, you had Brian Peterson, had the leaders Brian Peterson and Willie Parker went in there, and they were juniors, and them boys just put on a show. I seen that. And that's the greatest. I mean, that's me personally, that's the greatest team. That's just me. That's, you know. And a couple, like I said, and a couple others, I throw a little other things down there. Like so, we didn't throw the ball too much because we ran the ball. We ran the Army Navy football. Ran all that run. So the quarterbacks, we didn't have like quarterbacks that put up numbers. We didn't have a quarterback that we ain't have a quarterback put up 1,000 yards. Brian might have put up, but that's the greatest quarterback. That's what I get that to saying the greatest quarterback in Clinton. I ain't no top 5 quarterbacks. The greatest quarterback in Clinton is Brian Peterson. Point blank. Point blank. Or argue with someone else about that. Point blank. I mean, led that team to back-to-back state championship. It would have been a three-peat if things didn't happen their senior year because the senior year team was better than the 97 team, which I said was the best team, but they didn't win a state championship. But that team was better than the 97 team. Check the numbers. But things happen in sports. Sports, it's very unpredictable. Things can happen. Whenever you think things might go one way, any little slip up and things can fall short. And that's what happened with them. But yeah. And let's see. If I want to say, all right, we got I did the running backs, all right, and I do the greatest player. I have the two people. I have two people, and I have a personal relationship with both of them. Like I said, one of them, rest in peace. The two greatest players I've seen in Clinton High School history. So I can only talk the stuff I've seen. I can't talk what I haven't seen before. The two greatest players I've seen in football history in Clinton is Leonard Henry and Herbert Dixon. I mean, the way they carried their teams. I mean, there's very few players I've seen in Clinton that do that and took their team all the way to the top. Put the team on their shoulders. When it was needed, they put the team on their shoulders. And then when they couldn't support all the weight, they had a lot of support and cast, so they wouldn't have to carry the load on their shoulders, which allowed them to carry the load on their shoulders. And the best player that the player that had the greatest college season is Sam again, Leonard Henry for his senior year at East Carolina. I think he had like 1,400, 1,500 yards. He was a dark horse Heisman candidate and stuff. And I can't think of a player from my school that had a greater college season than that season for him. And of course, the best pro is Fast Willie. He's a Super Bowl champion, man. He had the record for the longest run in the Super Bowl history. I mean, you ain't topping that. The only thing topping that, you win the MVP. So he would have won the MVP if he won behind Ward. So yeah, that's and that's where we at with that. I ain't trying to. I ain't trying to. Ain't trying to ruffle no feathers, but we just that's just talking the truth, being honest. We got one more, it's been a minute, and one more thing, talk about, another thing that Clint was good at as well as football. We used to be good at. We was known for girls basketball. And real quick, and I had a top five. I do top five for debate for like the girls basketball, like who is the greatest? Because they had a few ones, you know. And let me start out with list number five. I got Felicia Autry. Felicia Autry played whenever she played right around time. Excuse me, my nose be itching. I'm sorry, don't think nothing crazy. My nose is itching on the inside, and I'm trying to rub it because I don't want to be up here like I'm digging up my damn nose, man. That'd be nasty, man. That ain't like that. So yeah, I'm trying to scratch my nose because it's itching. I'm sorry, ain't nothing going on, so I don't want to hear nothing. My nose itching. I won't be up here out here looking like I'm picking boogers. I ain't Biz Markie, rest in peace. But yeah, Felicia Autry. Yes. When she was playing, man, she was putting up numbers like, she was putting up like Giannis numbers. She was putting up like 21 points and 19 rebounds a night. She was a very skilled player. She was, tall, long. She was very, she was very good. She was a very good player. Able to, compile a lot of victories. Put up some great numbers up here. So yes, she's number five. Number four would be Tanya Cotwell. She was played in the 80s. She grew up in my neighborhood, and she grew. But I remember seeing her play because my cousin played on the team, and I used to watch them play. And yes, Tanya Cotwell was ahead of her time. She was a great playmaker. She had handles. She had it all. She was she like a Cheryl Miller type. She did her thing. She got a I don't know how they did in the playoffs and everything like that. So I don't know what kind of playoff success they had. I know she earned a scholarship to play at Campbell University, and she did. And she's living a successful life now. And yes, Tanya Caldwell did her thing. Number three. Some people might not like it. I don't care. You get whatever, but some people might feel like it need to be higher. I don't think so. But number three is Michaela Boykin. She did her thing. She did. Shout out to her dad. Tim Boykin. Her mom. Nicole. They raised a great athlete, man. She was able to put up a lot of numbers. Coming up, hold on. She was able to put up, a lot of numbers, do a lot of great things. Unfortunately, the thing is, it's sort of like when people try to say like the Notorious Big is, the greatest rapper. Skills wise, you might be right. You talk about skill wise and everything, you might be right. You might be able to, make that argument. But the thing is, you have to go by reality, man. He only had 2 albums, man, and there are people out there with a whole bunch of material out there. And his 2 albums just can't hold the weight. And part of that is what's, with Michaela, man. She had a great freshman season. And she had, 2 years where she had terrible knee injuries and missed her 2 seasons. And the greatness, she's so great that her senior season was so great that it made her the number 3 greatest player in history. But in one game, I think she dropped 62 points in a game. So, she put up numbers and she led that team to a state championship. I mean, that was an amazing feat, that was an amazing season. It couldn't go down as the greatest season as far as one player able to do it. I mean, it's just what she did. She just the same thing as I mentioned as far as with the running backs in football. She did that on that girl basketball team. She put them on her shoulders and carried them to the promised land. I give her props for that and all respect in the world for that. And then number 2, I have Danielle Parker. And like I said, she was my neighbor. She lived next to me. Not next, like it was a house between us, and she stayed next to me. I'm just saying it was sort of unreal. I didn't really grasp the magnitude of it, but having a She made that to be a second team All American. And it was crazy having that. Knowing somebody like that was standing next to me, it was sort of like it was crazy. But yeah, she was as a freshman. I think she had broke the state record for the most points as a freshman, sophomore, and junior. She she scored over 3,000 points. She had a state record for the most points at the time when she left. I mean, she went to three straight state championship games. She was finally able to win in her senior year. They went up there. I think they lost the Bandies twice. It was a great team. Excuse me. I think they won. I think they beat Newton Conover or something. So she was able to do that. She was a state player of the year. She was an All-American, Gatorade player of the year, Miss Basketball. I mean, all the honors for a high school basketball player in North Carolina went to Danielle Parker that year. She had every, everything, every award, everything. Her senior year, you couldn't ask for much. You know, which is saying something. Which means the number one player was her running mate, Tanya Sampson. Was it as much as Dan did as far as scoring and everything? Tanya did. She was more you know achieved. She had more success because she went to four straight state championship games. She started in four straight state championship games. She won two. She was a high school All-American. She was a Gatorade All-American Player of the Year, Miss Basketball. She had everything. She did it. She did it all. I remember that year when Rodney Rogers won Mr. Basketball. Miss Basketball was Tanya Sampson. So she did her thing. She did her thing, and that was a great time with women's basketball. That made me a fan of women's basketball, watching Tanya Caldwell, Danielle Parker. Then watch Tanya Caldwell. As soon as she graduated, Danielle Parker came in, and Tanya Sampson. Then when they left, they had, then they went to Felicia Autry, and it was just a good time for girls basketball in Clinton. Two sneakers. I mean, between when Danielle and Tanya, especially after Tanya Sampson, they had two other ones, Vivian Blue Pie. I got to mention her name. She was short, man. She was like Aubrey Latta for North Carolina back in the day. If you don't know her, that was Vivian Blue. And they had Tisha Murphy. They did their thing. They had a lot of solid girl basketball players. But it's a story for another day. But they had a lot of great teams, had a lot of good teams. The coaching was left a lot to be desired, but they could have had a lot more success if not for better coaching. But that's a whole nother story. So that'll give them two props. And it's been before I get out of here today. I know I kept it local, and I meant to do that. I wanted to get some things, talk about stuff, man, create conversation, stuff like that. So, I have to. I told my man, and shout out to a man live, man. I see you, man. Much love, my brother. Thanks for the support, man. My number one, my day one right there. My man, and live. Good love. Much love to you, my brother. So I was, this I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about for a long time because and I've been thinking about who could be in place of what I had. Who could beat that person? What I'm thinking about. What I was thinking about was the greatest athlete ever in like Clinton, and in Clinton High School. And I'm not going by I'm going by accomplishments. I'm going by stuff you can see, stuff that you can look up, stuff that you can, stuff that's tangible. You can look, feel, and all this stuff. I ain't talking about no urban legends. I ain't talking about, man, remember that time so-and-so did this at the park and all this? No, I ain't trying to hear all that. I ain't trying to hear, man, remember that time, man, jumped over that 20-foot damn ditch? No, I don't want to hear none of that shit. I don't want to hear when somebody jumped out of a tree and jumped over a house or jumped over nothing. I don't want to hear no urban legends. I'm just talking about the greatest athlete to come through Clinton. And with this, personally, and with this person, I'm saying, I moved it out toward past Clinton and I put it to Sampson County. And I said, this person, the greatest athlete to ever be in Sampson County. I'm going to make a case for it before I go. And the guy's name is Scooter Banks. You know, I want somebody to prove to me. I want somebody to give me some evidence, give me some stats, give me something to show me how he is not the greatest athlete. And I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why before I leave, and I just want to leave it at that. And if somebody can come up with something, let me know something. He's the greatest athlete. Scooter Banks played football for 2 years. Played football for 2 years. By the end of his senior year, he was an all-state football player. 2 years now. 2 years. You know? So, and then basketball. You know, he was a 4 year, 4 year player, 4 year superstar in Clayton High School. He ended up being a McDonald's All American at the end of his senior year. So all state football, All American basketball, singing and track star. He was a state champion, he was a multi-year state championship high jumper in track. Then on top of that, his senior year, he won the 100-meter dash. So not on top of that, being the all-state football player, all-American basketball player. You was a state championship. You're a state champion in track, so you're all-state track. You're state champion in track in two things, and them events. And what's so great about it? His senior year, him and the guy that was mentioned, in the running back category, that was a great track star, Robert Fuzzy Lee. Them two outscored the entire 2A division that year, that senior year. They outscored everybody. They won the state championship by themselves. They had Neil Westerbeek and Thomas Lockamy to add on a few points, but they didn't need them because Fuzzy and Scooter they outscored the entire everybody else in 2A division. But Scooter won the high jump and Scooter won the high jump and he won the 100-meter. So if anybody can tell me any athlete that come through Sampson County that has a resume that can beat that, I want to know, because I've never heard that. I haven't heard of that person. And I'm well versed. I sort of keep up like what goes on as far as in my hometown. So if somebody did that in Sampson County other than him, I want to know who it was. And I'll be waiting. Somebody let me know something. I like this day. I like this. Finally got through. I was a little nervous a little bit. I didn't know how I was going to do this, but I was like I said, being honest. Being honest. I'm not saying nothing personal. Nothing. I'm just being unbiased. Taking away my personal view and stuff. I'm just telling you what I seen, stuff that I seen and stuff. I ain't talking about what coaches said or what players did or what they thought. Whatever. I'm just talking about the actual performances on the field. And what was transpiring on the field. Nothing off the field, no personal, no how you feel about this coach or whatever. No, it had nothing to do with that. So yes, that's how we're gonna do it. And I'm glad y'all was able to be with me here for this first day, the first show that had won the top five. I'm doing other shows with top five, everything. Most of them won't be. This one was just personal because it was the first one. I wanted to make it personal about something that topic that people around, and most of the people that's not from Clinton won't, they won't understand. They may not understand or whatever or care about what I just went through. But it was more so for the people who are around that and Clinton or experience stuff like that may get conversation going. The spark conversation. Sparking conversation is always good. It's always good to get, intelligent minds flowing, get ideas flowing and stuff. So that's all we're trying to do here. So I would like to thank y'all for having me with y'all in y'all phone or computer or whatever in your ear. And I hope y'all have it's hot out there. I know it's hot here. It's hot out here. I hope y'all have a safe 4th of July. Ain't in all that. I don't celebrate 4th of July. Let's keep it real with you, man. I don't give a damn about this 250. I don't care about that. That's, me out here working. I don't get all that. So, but I know people out here do. So I'm not going to tell people they wrong for whatever. You celebrate how you do what you do. That's just me personally. But be safe out here. You know, keep yourself hydrated. It's hot out there. Drink water. Keep yourself hydrated. Don't be too cool or too manly to sit your ass down for that damn sun have you passed out there. So don't be out here trying to be Superman and trying to impress nobody out here. Their damn body tell you to sit down, sit your ass down. You know, the sun is no joke out there. So y'all be safe out here. I'll see y'all Monday. We back Monday. Back on schedule, doing things whether we do it. You know, love y'all. Like I always say, kiss your kids, kiss your loved ones. 'Cause you never know, man. You just never know. Tell them how you feel. Tell them, good or bad. Tell them how you feel. Because you never get a chance. You might never get that second chance. So, love y'all. Take care of yourself.